The NFL trade deadline is just hours away. On October 31st, the NFL trade deadline will pass. And on today's very special edition of the Commanders Report, we're going to be breaking down the latest Commanders trade rumors on Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and yes, even Jacoby Brissett. So make sure you click that subscribe button for breaking news coverage. If the Commanders make a trade tonight or even tomorrow before the deadline, we're going to have you covered with the video right here on the Commanders Report. So do me a favor, click that subscribe button right now. The latest Commanders trade rumor surrounds backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett after Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles versus the Green Bay Packers in Week 8. The Vikings are definitely desperate to potentially add a new starting quarterback for the rest of the 2023 season. They're currently sitting at 4-4, and many pundits have suggested, including myself, that Jacoby Brissett might be a very good fit for the Minnesota Vikings moving forward. You look at Jacoby Brissett, what he was last year with the Cleveland Browns and the offense that he played there, it was a West Coast system, very similar to what Kevin O'Connell, the offensive play caller and head coach there in Minnesota, runs there up north. So it would be a perfect fit here. It would be something that in the middle of the season, having somebody that knows the nomenclature, right, the verbiage of the offense, bringing somebody like that into the fold would be absolutely massive for the Minnesota Vikings, and I think they'd be willing to pay a pretty decent price to go get Jacoby Brissett. Of course, this comes in the wings of Kirk Cousins, their starting quarterback, out for the season with a torn Achilles. Right now, they got the likes of Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins as their current options as their next starting quarterback if they don't make a move by tomorrow. So Jacoby Brissett, I think, is an option for the Commanders, plain and simply because I think Sam Howell has absolutely earned the title of the bona fide starting quarterback for the future here in Washington. Right now, 66.9 completion percentage, about 270 yards passing per game. That's pretty decent. And then he also has 13 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Now, you want to see those interception numbers go down, but I'm very intrigued with what I've seen from Sam Howell. He's proven that he's got good pocket presence. He can deliver footballs, even when the defense knows that he's throwing it, which is something you don't see in the everyday starting NFL quarterback. I like where Sam Howell is going. So for me, if I'm the Washington Commanders and the Minnesota Vikings are going to offer me something decent for Jacoby Brissett, I am going to take that deal 100%. And as a Commanders fan, you need to be watching out for this potential trade here of Jacoby Brissett. I really don't think he's going to be sent anywhere other than the Minnesota Vikings at this point. Ryan Tannehill will probably be another one of those trade targets for Minnesota moving forward. But Brissett to Minnesota is definitely something that you want to keep your eye on as we approach the deadline tomorrow afternoon. For me, I would take a 5th-round pick for him. I mean, I think that's incredible compensation for your backup quarterback. Brissett's not going to be the answer long-term here in Washington. He has no shot of doing that. I mean, I guess the one argument against trading him to Minnesota is, well, what if Sam Howell gets hurt? You want a decent quarterback. But let's face it, man, the Commanders right now, sitting with just 3 wins on the year, 3-5. I mean, like at this point, if Sam Howell gets hurt, you're probably punting on the season anyway. So I think if you can get a decent draft pick for Jacoby Brissett before the deadline tomorrow, and Minnesota's willing to get the deal done, I think this is something I'm absolutely considering. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this trade if the Vikings GM gave you a call right now? Type A for accept or type D for decline. This is also going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now, according to Fox Sports' Jay Glazer, the Commanders will trade one of Chase Young, Montez Sweat, or Jonathan Allen before the trade deadline passes tomorrow afternoon, which is definitely it's definitely interesting that he included Jonathan Allen's name in that mix. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Does Jonathan Allen want out of Washington? I mean, I guess that's going to be remain to be seen. Leonard Williams was traded earlier today from the New York Giants to the Seattle Seahawks. So that Jonathan Allen would absolutely be the number one guy on the defensive tackle market as of right now. But I really don't see Allen getting traded at this point unless he's straight up demanding a trade from the Commanders front office. Right now, Jonathan Allen really doing a great job. 29 tackles, 15 tackles for loss. That is a monstrous number just 8 weeks into the season. That is a huge tackle for loss number right there. And then also 3 sacks, 9 QB hits. He's somebody that's one of the most disruptive interior defenders in the National Football League. If he's going somewhere, the price has to be extremely, extremely steep. But I really don't think that's going to happen, guys. I think if a trade happens with the Washington Commanders, outside of Jacoby Brissett, right, if it's going to be for a defensive lineman, I think it's either going to be Chase Young or Montez Sweat. Now, coming up here, I'm going to give you guys the latest trade rumors surrounding both Chase Young and Montez Sweat. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor at Prize Picks. And let me tell you, man, I've been straight up addicted to using this app ever since we started partnering with these guys here at Chat Sports. If you're looking for a way to spice up your game days this NFL season, get started with Prize Picks today. Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. And if you're asking, how does daily fantasy work? Well, here's how. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. So let's take a look at my entry tonight for Monday Night Football between the Raiders and Lions. I got the less on Josh Jacobs touchdowns, the more on Jared Goff passing yards, and the more on Amon-Ra St. Brown receiving yards tonight. You can get your picks in before the game tonight, so do it right now. Check it out at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100 today. At Prize Picks, you aren't competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks that are just looking to take advantage of you. With Prize Picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. So get started right away. You could do it before Monday Night Football tonight. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS. for a deposit match up to $100 today. So now the latest trade rumor surrounding Chase Young is that Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk has linked him to the Chicago Bears. Now, when I heard that name, Chicago Bears, a team that just got pounded by the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday Night Football last night, really, that team is going to be a buyer at the trade deadline. I wasn't too sure. And I'll give you my thoughts on that here in just a second. But let's take a look at the trade that went down today, because I think it's going to loom large for the Commanders moving into this trade deadline. So Leonard Williams, right? 5 technique, defensive end, defensive tackle type, right? Kind of a bigger defensive end. His value on the market was a 2nd-round pick and a 5th-round pick. Now you look at guys like Chase Young, Montez Sweat, very valuable, productive edge rushers in this league. I think it's going to take at least a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick from whoever trades for them here in order to make a deal happen for the Washington Commanders. Because the Commanders are going to be looking at that Leonard Williams trade, and they're going to say, hold up now, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, I think, are both better and more valuable trade pieces than Leonard Williams at this point. We want to get more in the deal that we make. So I really don't think a 3rd-round pick is going to be good enough. I really do think it's going to take at least a 2nd and then another mid-round pick in order to make something happen by Tuesday's deadline. And I'm really not sure if Chicago is going to be that team. I mean, like I said, this team is struggling. They just got absolutely piss-pounded by the Los Angeles Chargers of all teams last night. I really don't think they're going to be competing. Now, the potential reason for why they might go get a guy like Chase Young is they want to get that number 1 edge rusher in their defense for years to come. They're not really trading for him for this season's results. They're more trading for him for the future. That's certainly something I could see. But, I mean, trading away valuable draft capital for a rebuilding football team, I guess you can say I'll believe it when I see it. Now, when it comes to Montez Sweat, the team that's been linked to him is the Atlanta Falcons, who, according to Mike Florio, already offered the Commanders a 3rd-round pick in exchange for Sweat, and I'm glad that a deal has not been done yet between these two teams. I am not giving up Montez Sweat for just a 3rd-round pick. The success rate on a 3rd-round pick is not high enough, in my opinion. It is definitely not compensatory to the value that Montez Sweat is going to bring to your football team. Really don't think that that's something that I would consider. Something I would consider, however, I mean, very similar to what we talked about with the Bears and the Leonard Williams trade playing a part here. I really think it's going to take a 2nd-round pick and probably another mid-round pick. I think with the Falcons, because their record is better than Chicago's right now, it's probably going to be a second and a third instead of a second and a fourth. With Chicago, they might have one of the top second-round picks in next year's draft, so that pick will be a little bit more valuable than the Falcons one. But overall, this is something that I would consider if I absolutely had to trade one of these guys. And I really do think something is going to get done. Maybe I disagree with it. Maybe I would rather keep these guys on the Commanders roster to try to make a playoff run. I'm sure that's probably what Ron Rivera probably wants. But at this point, it really does seem like something's going to get done. And the reason why I say that is Ron Rivera just kind of laid it out for us today during his press conference. This is what he had to say. We'll discuss those things once we get past Tuesday. Once we get past tomorrow, we'll probably have something to talk about. He's referring to the trade deadline. So he's talking about how the Commanders are definitely in trade talks and that a deal is probably going to end up happening by tomorrow. So make sure you click that subscribe button because we are going to have you covered with breaking news action whenever a move is made. All right, speaking of these moves here, let me know down in the comments section. Who is going to get dealt here? I really don't think Ron Rivera wants a trade, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Who is the guy that's going to get dealt? Is it going to be Chase Young? Is it going to be Montez Sweat? Or do you think it's going to be both? Do you think there's a scenario where they both get traded by tomorrow's deadline? Type CY for Chase Young, type MS for Montez Sweat, or type B if you think both. That's going to be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now because if the Commanders make a move, and it certainly seems like they're going to, we're going to be right here giving you guys the breaking news action 100% free. So don't forget to click that subscribe button right now.